We all acknowledge stress when we're anxious about something or when we're in danger or when we're really mad because somebody just totally ticked us off. But what we don't acknowledge is stress, our good things. My son just got married. That was a lot of fun. It was also very high stress. Having a baby or a grandbaby, beautiful experience, high stress. A social calendar that's too full. I'm glad you have a life and people that you want to go out with, but having to budget time for everything, your body perceives that as stress. And your body only has one response to stress, and that's high cortisol. And high cortisol is meant to be brief. The way we were designed was that we would be in an emergency situation, our cortisol rises, we are given energy, blood sugar to be able to run, to get out of the way. There's a tiger chasing us and we need to move. We outrun the tiger, we calm back down again. But in our modern world, when we have 25 windows open on our computer and when we are budgeting everything and we are multitasking all the time, that is the same thing. And prolonged high cortisol eats you up like acid from the inside out. It causes your brain to shrink, which is the ultimate leader to brain fog. Prolonged high cortisol leads to leaky gut. The lining of your intestines lose their ability to filter what's good and bad, and things that don't belong sneak through. And that leads to inflammation. And inflammation is the root of all illness. So when you have this inflammation, that's when you get rusty locks. The locks reside on the cell membrane, which is made out of fatty acids. And this is a little sciencey, but it's kind of important to understand. These fatty acids rust, they get oxidized, and they change their shape. If you picture a Tupperware dish that has a beautiful shape and you're going to put something in it, but you hold it over an open flame, what happens? It loses its shape. And that's what happens to the cell membrane when these fatty acids are oxidized. That's what causes rusty locks, because the cell membrane and the fatty acids are so intertwined that when the cell membrane loses its structure, the receptor loses its shape. And because hormones work together with the key and a lock, they have to fit. If the receptor has a different shape, you can have all the beautiful bioidentical hormones, great thyroid levels, but if the receptor will not accept the hormone, your hormones don't work. And that's rusty locks. And stress leads to that. The second biggest one that I see that people don't really realize is mold. Mold is the ultimate inflammatory environmental toxin. In fact, if I meet someone who has multiple different toxin levels, and we will check these in people, we'll check heavy metals, we check chemical exposures, we check mycotoxins, which are the chemicals secreted by mold. If I find all three of those, guess what I start with? I always start with mold. What we need to do is we need to gain back the resiliency. We can't get rid of everything. The good news is we don't have to. We have to get rid of enough that our body regains its resiliency and the ability to heal and regenerate. And what I have found is that when we heal from the mold exposure, oftentimes the body regains its resiliency and can heal from other things so much faster. And going back to stress, it's the same with cortisol. I kind of call cortisol the master key because it affects so many other hormone systems. And if we talk about your house with your rooms that you're trying to unlock, cortisol affects so many different systems that it's like the master key. It affects thyroid. Instead of making the active thyroid hormone, you make the inactive thyroid hormone. You feel tired even if your TSH is normal. Your thyroid can't work right. You're not making the active hormone. Even if your TSH is normal, you have what I call functional hypothyroidism. High cortisol also affects insulin. It leads to insulin resistance. When you have high cortisol, your blood sugar raises, which leads to insulin rising. Prolonged high insulin leads to weight problems. Weight problems lead to inflammation. It creates this vicious cycle of more cortisol, more insulin, and somehow we have to get in there and break the cycle. Lastly, cortisol affects your sex steroids too. All of these hormones are made out of the same precursor, and if you have prolonged high cortisol, there's this phenomenon called cortisol steal, and that means instead of being able to make progesterone or estrogen or testosterone or DHEA, which are all very good hormones that your body needs, your body will die without the right amount of cortisol because it's a fight or flight hormone. You just suffer immensely without the others. They don't kill you. And so if you have this prolonged high stress, everything gets shunted towards survival mode. And what happens when people are living in survival mode? They're not thriving. They're just barely getting by. These are the women that go to their doctors and they can't think straight. Their moods are up and down. They have brain fog, and the doctor checks their thyroid and it looks fine, and checks a few other things and they look okay. And so they're told, well, it's just normal aging, but it's not. I call BS. So I have good news for you, and that is you can actually become your own locksmith. You have the ability to take control of your health and help your body recover and regain its resiliency. So how do we do that? Knowledge is power. So what do we want to learn? We want to learn how to reduce inflammation. We want to learn what optimal levels of micronutrients are, and we need to shoot for those levels. And there's a huge difference between normal range and optimum. We want to reduce our stress, and there are simple ways to do that. And we need to learn how to decrease our exposure to environmental toxins. Listen, we don't have control over everything, but we have control over what we put in our mouth, what we put on our skin, what we clean our house with, and what we spray in our yard. And the good news is if we take care of those 4 things, that is often enough to get our resiliency back. So what I want to do is help you learn those things. So how do we do it? Stick with me. I can't do it all today, but I promise you that we will learn how to do these things. And then when you learn how to do them, put them in action, baby steps in the right direction, get you to your destination.